Only one thing seems to me more unlikely than the creation of the world, its continuance. Talk about starting a book with a bang.
Wow.
That's Emil Cioran for you, the king of pessimism who could make even despair sound witty. And that's exactly who we're diving deep on today.
It's that unique blend of bleakness and brilliance that makes him so fascinating.
Right. So we've got a stack of interesting stuff for you today. Excerpts from his Wikipedia page, a piece called An Infamous Past, which dives into some of his more controversial views, and glimpses into two of his works, On the Heights of Despair and The Trouble with Being Born.
We'll be exploring not just his ideas, but the man behind them. Get ready to unpack Cioran's Romanian roots, his self-imposed exile in France, and his own personal dances with failure.
Because, let's be real, this wasn't some armchair philosopher theorizing from a distance.
Oh, absolutely not.
Cioran lived his philosophy, contradictions and all.
Absolutely. Take, for instance, his early years. They were deeply marked by this controversial flirtation with fascism, a period he later looked back on with immense regret.
Yeah, the article by Marta Petro, An Infamous Past, really digs into this period. It's kind of shocking to think about this brilliant mind being captivated by Hitler. What do you make of that?
It's crucial to remember the context. Romania in the 1930s was wrestling with its identity, caught between its past and a desire for modernization.
Mm.
Cioran, steeped in this struggle, saw his country's perceived backwardness as a source of personal shame.
So he was looking for a way to catapult Romania onto the world stage, and he saw fascism, particularly in the form of Hitler's Germany, as that very force.
Precisely. He was drawn to the energy, the sense of purpose, however twisted, that fascism represented. Cioran even called himself a Hitlerist at one point, though he later described this stance as the worst folly of his youth.
Which is quite the understatement, considering the horrors that unfolded. But even in his early writings, like The Transfiguration of Romania, where he argues for a dictatorship to drag Romania into the modern world, there's this tension, this internal conflict.
Absolutely. He craved a strong Romanian identity, but simultaneously seemed to despise aspects of Romanian culture. It's as if he was grappling with these contradictions on the page, searching for a way to reconcile them. And that internal struggle, that wrestling match between longing and disdain, really defines a lot of Cioran's work, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's like he took the turmoil of his homeland and turned it into a philosophy, a way of looking at the world. Which brings us to his trademark, pessimism.
But, this wasn't your average run-of-the-mill pessimism. This was pessimism as a high art, delivered with wit and a surprising lightness.
It's like he's saying, yes, life is absurd, but haven't you noticed? Let's have some fun with that. Which might be why he was so obsessed with failure.
His philosophy of failure wasn't just some academic theory. It was deeply rooted in his personal experiences and observations.
Hmm.
The Philosopher of Failure article mentions an anecdote about Cioran wanting to write a whole book titled Philosophy of Failure, subtitled For the Exclusive Use of the Romanian People. It's as if he saw his country's struggles as a kind of collective embrace of failure, when he both lamented and, in a strange way, celebrated.
And that celebration of failure wasn't limited to Romania. He seemed to see it as an essential part of the human condition, a universal truth hiding in plain sight.
Right, and this is where his personal choices become really illuminating. Cioran actively cultivated failure in his own life, rejecting traditional paths to success. He chose to live as a financially unstable writer, scraping by in Paris, embracing the identity of an outsider.
It's like he was saying, if I'm going to explore failure, I'm going to do it fully, experientially. There's a boldness to that, a refusal to shy away from the more uncomfortable aspects of existence.
Absolutely. And it's through this lens of failure, of confronting the limits of human endeavor, that we can start to understand his fascination with Gnosticism.
Okay, so unpack that a bit. How does an ancient belief system tie into this Romanian philosopher grappling with failure in 20th century Paris?
For Cioran, the world, with all its suffering and absurdity, wasn't a place to be saved or improved. It was the product of a flawed creation. Remember, Gnostics believed that the material world was created by a flawed demiurge, a kind of lesser deity who messed up, leaving us all trapped in this imperfect reality.
So in a way, Cioran believed we're all living in a cosmic error message.
Exactly. And for someone like Cioran, who felt so acutely the weight of existence, that idea must have been strangely liberating. It's like saying, of course things are a mess. Look who's running the show.
Which might explain why he could find humor in the bleakest of realities. It's a kind of cosmic shrug, a way of saying, well, what did you expect?
Precisely. And this brings us to a less explored aspect of Cioran, his romanticism. Because, you see, this wasn't just a man obsessed with darkness. He was deeply attuned to beauty, to the power of language, to the poignant fragility of life.
Yeah, you definitely get that from his writing. Even when he's tackling the heaviest of subjects, there's a lyricism, a poetic sensibility that shines through, almost like he couldn't help but find beauty even in despair.
That's a great observation, and
Yeah.
it speaks to the complexity of the man. Cioran wasn't content with simplistic answers or easy categories. He saw the world in shades of gray, embracing the contradictions, the inherent messiness of it all.
So he's this fascinating blend of deep pessimism, sharp wit, and unexpected romanticism.
Right.
It's like he's holding all these seemingly contradictory ideas at once, refusing to let any one of them define him.
And that's what makes him so relevant, even today. In a world obsessed with easy answers and quick fixes, Cioran reminds us that sometimes the most honest way to engage with life is to embrace its complexity, to acknowledge the inherent absurdity of it all.
He's like that friend who challenges you to look beyond the surface, who isn't afraid to ask the uncomfortable questions, even if it means sitting with a little discomfort.
Precisely. He forces us to confront the big questions about our own mortality, the fleeting nature of existence, the limits of human understanding. And he does it with a wink and a sly grin, reminding us that even in despair, there can be a strange kind of humor.
It's like he's saying, sure, the world might be a mess, but we might as well enjoy the ride.
Exactly. And for me, that's one of the most valuable takeaways from Cioran. The idea that true freedom comes from confronting, even embracing, the limitations of our existence. It's in accepting our own failures, our own mortality, that we can truly begin to live authentically.
So where do you suggest someone start with Cioran? What's a good entry point for the uninitiated?
The Trouble with Being Born is a great starting point. It's a collection of aphorisms, so you can dip in and out of it at your own pace. Each aphorism is like a little grenade of insight, packed with Cioran's signature wit and bleakly humorous outlook.
I love that description. It's like he distilled his entire philosophy into these potent little nuggets of wisdom.
He really did. And if you're looking for something a bit meatier, I'd recommend On the Heights of Despair. It's one of his earlier works written in Romanian, but it really showcases that raw lyrical style he became known for.
Amazing. Well, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about today. Cioran is definitely not your average philosopher, and diving into his work is not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not. You'll be challenged.
Yeah.
It's not a passive experience, that's for sure, but it's one that can be incredibly rewarding, even liberating.
It's like he gives you permission to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, darkness, and all.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of Emil Cioran.
It does.
To everyone listening, we encourage you to explore Cioran for yourselves.
Yeah, check him out.
You might not always agree with him. Heck, you might even find yourself vehemently disagreeing at times, but it'll definitely make you think. And maybe even crack a smile while staring into the abyss.
Yeah, he'll definitely make you think, that's for sure. And isn't that what a good philosophical deep dive is all about?
It is. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, sometimes the most profound truths are found in the most unexpected places.